In this lesson about absolute value, we will learn how to find the absolute value of an integer, as well as interpret the absolute value as the magnitude of positive and negative numbers in real life. First, let's start with what absolute value means. It simply means the distance from 0 on a number line. Let's use the number line below to demonstrate this. We'll start off by labeling the points. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then to the left of 0 we have our negative numbers. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Let's start with the number negative 2. If I wanted to find the absolute value of negative 2, first I would write it the correct way. It would look like this. Absolute value is always represented with these parallel lines on each side of the number. When you see those, that means they want you to find the absolute value of the quantity that's inside. So let's look at number 2, or negative 2, and see the distance it is from 0. We'll start at 0. We need to make 1, 2 jumps to get to negative 2. So that means the absolute value of negative 2 equals 2. Now let's try to find the absolute value of a positive number. Let's say we want to find the absolute value of the number 4. This means that we want to find the distance 4 is from 0. So if we start at 0 and make our jumps, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps. So the absolute value of 4 equals 4. You should notice that it doesn't matter if the number inside the absolute value symbols are negative or positive. No matter what, the absolute value is going to be a positive number, because when you talk about distance, you can't have a negative distance. You can only have a distance that goes to the left or to the right on the number line, but it's always positive. One of the mistakes commonly made with absolute value is confusing it with opposites. So let's make sure we clarify. Let's say that I want to find the opposite of the number 5. Remember, opposite means the numbers that are identical distances away from 0 on the number line. So the opposite of 5 would be negative 5. If I want the opposite of negative 8, the opposite, or the number that's the same distance from 0 on a number line, would be positive 8. So sometimes the opposite number is negative and sometimes the opposite number is positive. Now let's look how that works on absolute value. If I want to find the absolute value of the number 5, that means how far is 5 away from 0 on the number line. And the distance is 5 steps away. If I wanted to find the absolute value of negative 8, that means on a number line, how far is negative 8 away from 0? And the distance it is positive 8. You can never have a negative distance, which means you can never have an absolute value that's a negative answer. Opposites can be negative. Let's use this problem to show us how we can use absolute value in real life. It says Nikki cannot use her credit card if her balance is less than negative $750. What's the absolute value of this amount, and what does this absolute value represent? First, let's find the absolute value of negative 750. That's asking us how far away from 0 negative 750 is on the number line. Well, it's to the left, but the distance from 0 is 750. Now, what does this mean? Well, you have to think about it like this. A balance less than 0 is a debt, or it's the money that you owe. So any negative balance, therefore, can be expressed as the absolute value of the number. Nikki's maximum debt is the absolute value of negative 750? Let's write that down. Maximum debt is the absolute value of negative 750. This is the same as saying she cannot exceed a debt of $750 on her credit card. Notice when we write this number right here that it's positive 750, but it's a debt. And so when we wrote the absolute value of negative 750, we show that as a debt of a positive 750. Okay, let's look at another example. This one says a submarine is negative 12 feet above sea level. Express the distance from sea level using absolute value, then describe what the absolute value represents. Okay, let's start with finding our absolute value of negative 12. That's asking us how far from 0 negative 12 is on a number line, and it is 12 spaces to the left, so its distance is positive 12. Now what does that mean in this problem? Well, when you read it, it says that the submarine is negative 12 feet above sea level. Well, if you are above sea level, but you're negative 12 feet above sea level, that actually means that you're below sea level, because negative 12 would mean the opposite of 12 feet above sea level. So your distance is 12 feet away from sea level, but it's below sea level. So that's how you would describe this absolute value. The submarine is 12 feet below sea level. And we know it's below because it says negative 12 feet in the beginning of the problem. Now pause the video and try this problem on your own. Okay, look at my answer and see if your answer is the same. When I found the absolute value of negative 9,000, its distance from 0 is 9,000 away. Now if you take that 9,000 and think about what that means, it actually means that the company's tax return showed a loss of $9,000. And we know that it's a loss because the original number started out to be negative. So the $9,000 that we got for absolute value tells us that the company's tax return showed a loss of $9,000.